What if you could screen a batch of lottery tickets and pick the one most likely to be a winner? Now, what if those lottery tickets were your future children, and the prize was a lower risk of developing diseases like cancer or diabetes? Welcome to the world of Preimplantation Polygenic Screening, or PGS. This cutting-edge technology, used with in vitro fertilization, promises to give parents a genetic crystal ball, allowing them to select embryos with a lower genetic predisposition to a host of common, complex diseases. It heralds a new era of proactive healthcare, but it also throws us onto a profound ethical battlefield, questioning our very ideas of health, disability, and what it means to be human. Today, we're diving deep into the science, the hopes, the fears, and the societal shockwaves of this genetic oracle. So, how does this genetic fortune-telling actually work? First, we need to understand the difference between two types of genetic diseases. On one hand, you have monogenic diseases, like cystic fibrosis, caused by a mutation in a single gene. We've been able to screen embryos for these for a while. But most common diseases, like heart disease, schizophrenia, or type 2 diabetes, are polygenic. This means they aren't caused by one faulty gene, but by the combined effects of thousands of tiny genetic variations, all acting in concert with lifestyle and environmental factors. For decades, this complexity made them impossible to test for before implantation. That all changed with something called genome-wide association studies, or GWAS. These massive studies scan the DNA of huge populations to find common genetic markers known as SNPs that are slightly more frequent in people with a particular disease. Each SNP on its own has a minuscule effect, but their cumulative impact can be significant. Preimplantation polygenic screening takes this data and applies it to an embryo. A few cells are biopsied from a 5-day-old embryo, and its DNA is scanned for thousands of these disease-associated SNPs. All this information is then crunched into a single number, a polygenic risk score, or PRS. This score estimates the embryo's genetic risk for a specific condition compared to the general population. An embryo with a lower score is deemed to have a lower genetic predisposition. It's important to stress this is not a diagnosis. A high PRS doesn't guarantee you'll get sick, and a low PRS doesn't grant you immunity. It's all about probability and relative risk. Still, some companies claim this process can reduce the incidence of certain diseases by as much as 72%. And it's this ability to grade and rank embryos based on their genetic report card that sits at the very heart of the ethical storm. So let's look at the arguments in favor. Why would anyone want to do this? Proponents see PGS as a powerful tool for promoting health and empowering parents. The core argument is based on a principle called procreative beneficence, the idea that parents have a moral obligation to choose the healthiest child possible. Ethicists like Julian Savulescu have even argued that if a technology can lead to a life with greater well-being, it would be unethical not to use it. Following this logic, preventing disease in your child is a fundamental parental duty, and PGS is just the latest, most advanced tool to fulfill that duty. The first child born after polygenic screening was to a neurologist, Rafal Smagrodsky, who very much saw it this way. Then there's the principle of reproductive autonomy. Supporters argue that prospective parents, especially those with a painful family history of a certain disease, have the right to use available technology to make informed choices and reduce the risk of passing on suffering. After all, we already accept embryo screening for single-gene disorders and chromosomal abnormalities. Why is extending this to common polygenic diseases so different? From a wider public health perspective, the potential benefits could be enormous. Imagine a society with a significantly lower incidence of heart disease, diabetes, and certain cancers. The burden on our healthcare systems could be drastically reduced, leading to a healthier population overall. From this utilitarian viewpoint, the collective good of reducing disease on a mass scale could outweigh many of the ethical concerns. But for every hopeful argument, there is an equally powerful and fearful counter-argument. Critics from across bioethics, disability rights, and social sciences raise a number of profound concerns. The most prominent and chilling fear is that PGS is simply a new, high-tech form of eugenics. Critics have labeled it techno-eugenics, warning that it will inevitably lead to a society that values certain genetic traits over others, deciding who is fit to be born based on a DNA report card. They point to a dangerous slippery slope. Today, we're screening for disease. But what about tomorrow? What happens when we can screen for non-medical traits, like height, intelligence, or even physical appearance, leading to the creation of designer babies? The fact that some companies have already offered screening for traits labeled intellectual disability only fuels these anxieties. The disability rights community has been one of the most vocal critics. They argue that the very act of screening for and selecting against certain genetic profiles sends a deeply harmful message, that the lives of people with disabilities are less valuable, and that disability itself is something to be eradicated. This is known as the expressivist objection. It can increase stigma and discrimination, while reducing social support for those living with genetic conditions. These advocates champion a social model of disability, which says the problem isn't a person's body, but a society's failure to be inclusive and accessible. From their perspective, we should be fixing society's barriers, not trying to eliminate human genetic diversity. Another major concern is the potential to deepen social inequality. IVF and PGS are incredibly expensive, making them accessible only to the wealthy. This creates the terrifying prospect of a genetic stratification, a genetically enhanced upper class with a lower burden of disease, while the less privileged are left behind. This could entrench existing social hierarchies, creating a world of genetic haves and have-nots. Finally, many critics, including medical professionals, question the scientific validity of the whole enterprise. Polygenic risk scores are just probabilities with limited predictive power. Worse, most of the genomic data used to create these scores comes from people of European ancestry. This means the risk assessments can be highly inaccurate for individuals from other backgrounds, potentially leading to the discarding of perfectly healthy embryos. The American College of Medical Genetics and Genomics has been clear, stating that this technology is not yet ready for clinical use due to insufficient evidence. The widespread use of PGS wouldn't just change individual families, it could send shockwaves through our entire society. One of the biggest shifts could be in our perception of responsibility for health. As it becomes common to screen for genetic predispositions, the burden of health could shift onto parents to make the right genetic choices. This could create immense social pressure to use PGS, subtly coercing people into conforming to a genetically optimized ideal and narrowing our definition of what is a normal or acceptable human being. This also raises profound questions for the disability community. If the numbers of people born with certain genetic conditions decline, what happens then? While some see this as a positive, it could also lead to decreased public awareness, less funding for research and support services, and the loss of unique cultures and contributions from these communities. The very existence of a technology designed to prevent disability can feel like a societal judgment on the value of those lives. And then there's the fear of genetic enhancement. While current use focuses on disease, the same tech could be used to select for intelligence or athleticism. Philosopher Michael Sandel has warned about this drive to master the mystery of birth, calling it a form of parental hubris that could corrode the parent-child relationship, turning children into commodities to be designed rather than individuals to be loved for who they are. This ties back into social stratification, a genetic divide where the wealthy can afford to give their children a biological advantage, is antithetical to the ideals of a just and equitable society. The fact that the science is less accurate for non-European populations only adds another layer of concern, potentially reinforcing existing racial and ethnic health disparities. You might think a technology with such profound implications would be heavily regulated. You'd be wrong. The rapid development of PGS has completely outpaced the ability of governments to keep up. The result is a regulatory quagmire, a confusing patchwork of policies that varies wildly around the world. In the United States, the regulation of reproductive tech is famously lax. there is no federal law directly governing PGS. This regulatory vacuum has allowed private companies to market these tests directly to consumers, sometimes with very bold and unproven claims. Professional bodies like the American College of Medical Genetics urge caution, but their guidelines aren't legally binding. So you have a major split between cautious clinicians and eager patients. Egged on by commercial marketing, the United Kingdom is more regulated. The Human Fertilization and Embryology Authority licenses clinics for genetic testing, but it has not yet established a clear policy on PGS for polygenic conditions, so it's not widely used there yet. Other countries are all over the map. Australia has a mix of national guidelines and state laws. South Africa's law only mentions sex selection. Switzerland even held a public referendum on the legality of pre-implantation genetic diagnosis, showing just how deeply these technologies divide society. This lack of international consensus creates serious problems. It leads to reproductive tourism, where people travel to countries with looser rules to access technologies they can't get at home. It creates inconsistent standards of care and leaves vulnerable patients open to exploitation by companies that might overstate the benefits of their tests. Preimplantation polygenic screening is no longer science fiction. It is a testament to incredible scientific progress, offering a tantalizing power to shape the genetic health of future generations. But with this power comes a profound and heavy responsibility. The ethical maze it presents has no easy answers. As we move forward, the path must be one of responsible innovation. This means demanding that any clinical use of PGS is backed by solid scientific evidence of safety and real-world effectiveness. It means establishing clear, comprehensive regulations to protect patients and prevent the slide into non-medical enhancement. It means investing in public education and genetic counseling so that people can make truly informed decisions that align with their own values. Most importantly, it means creating a broad, inclusive conversation that listens to and respects every stakeholder, especially the disability communities, who are most vulnerable to the potential harms of this technology. The genetic oracle is here. The choices we make now about how we use it will not only shape the genetic makeup of our descendants, but also the moral character of our humanity for generations to come.